In 1981, a child was born and given the task of transforming English. If you have a textbook teacher, if you have an English problem, maybe you can call Kickass English! Hello and welcome to another edition of Kickass English, the only place on the internet where you will get lessons like this and your writing will improve from week to week to week. If you remember last week, we talked all about the 5 senses and how that can help writing to describe. So today's lesson, we're going to build on that lesson. We're not going to forget it, we're going to build on that lesson. So if you want to check out that video first, do that. But if you know all about sensory description already and you just want to check out this video, this is what we're going to add in today. First up is prepositions. And if I say that word, prepositions, it's again another example of a really posh sounding word for something really simple. But if I do slow it down and I go prepositions, a bit like that Sesame Street character who used to go prepositions, preposition, preposition, preposition. If I slow it down and I go prepositions, you're probably hearing the word position, okay? And that's really important when we get to understand what prepositions are, because prepositions tell you the place or the position of one noun in relation to another noun. Now, if you don't know what nouns are, and I said you don't need to worry about things like that, a noun is just an object. So if you go back to our definition, a noun is an object or a thing, something you can point at. So if we say a preposition tells you the place of one thing to another thing. It lets you know where one thing is in relation to another thing. And there's loads of them. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get 2 action figures to help me out, and you'll get this dead quick. So I've got Skeletor, the evil lord of Snake Mountain, if you don't know. And I've got the hero of the piece, I have got He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. These are 2 nouns, proper nouns. But they are nouns, the 2 things. If I say He-Man was next to Skeletor, that word next to is a preposition. If I say He-Man was close to Skeletor, that's also a preposition because it tells you where they are. Now think about it, can we think of a word that makes them move apart? So if I said Skeletor was something, He-Man, could you put a preposition in that sentence that would move them away? Have a think. And I want them to move away. So Skeletor was far away from He-Man. I'll get you next time. There's other ones though. For example, He-Man was in front of Skeletor. So there's lots of them. Another one. He-Man was over Skeletor. So you can see there's loads of them. And what they help you do in your mind, put those down for a minute, they help you see where one thing is in relation to another. So what I want you to do, put the word prepositions, put it in a bubble, and what I want you to do then, I want you to spend 2-3 minutes thinking of all those words that tell you the position of one thing as to another. So for example, I will give you one to start with, under. Okay, so right under, put it in your mind map, and what I want you to do, I want you to spend 2-3 minutes, no longer, come up with a list of as many as you can think of. Pause the video and I'll see you when you've done that. Hi and welcome back. Hopefully you've got a load of prepositions. So there's some that tell you when that event is happening between those nouns. It tells you the time period of when it was happening. So for example, before, after, during, until, within. There's so many of them. So you can see these prepositions help piece it together. If you think of writing to describe is like building a huge jigsaw puzzle. And we've got our sensory description that we mentioned last lesson, and yes, that's valid. That helps build that picture. But prepositions really are like that box to the jigsaw. If you imagine you've got your jigsaw, the box has the picture telling you when and where all those pieces go. And you can imagine what would happen if you didn't even have that box. If you didn't have that box, what would be the danger for the reader, for the person building that jigsaw? You'd probably build a jigsaw like me. You'd be mashing them in any which way. Yes, you would get a picture. After a lot of brute force forcing those pieces in, you would definitely get a picture. But prepositions help put that picture in our brain, in our mind, far, far easier, because it tells us when and where everything should be. Still don't believe me? There are doubters out there, I am sure. If I said to 3 different people, right, I want you to draw me a picture. I want you to draw me a picture of a park, and in that park I want a slide, I want some dog walkers, and I want a bench. Do you think all the pictures would be the same? Do you? No, I don't think those 3 pictures would be the same. The writer's job is to put your image into the reader's mind. So prepositions help with that. So if I said, in the park there was a bench, and behind the bench was a slide. The slide could just be seen beyond the dog walkers who were walking in amongst the field walking the dog. You would start to put that picture in the minds of readers so that they were all largely getting the same image. And if you think about it, if I want to create a picture that's got to be totally accurate to the one I'm trying to describe, I don't want them going here, there and everywhere. I want them to follow my image that I'm creating. So that's why prepositions work. So if you were here at the beginning of the video, you will have realized that I said there were 4 things, 4 ingredients that we can put into our writing in every single paragraph that will improve our skill. No matter what skill level we're starting at, it doesn't matter. These are 4 ingredients that we can put into our writing, and it will make a big difference of what comes out onto the page. So, without further ado, drum roll please, and these are in no priority order. Number one is vary your sentences. Now, I'm not going to go into detail in terms of what sentence types are. We'll make another video for that. For anyone wondering what I'm on about sentence types, I mean simple, compound and complex. Vary your sentences. So what does that mean in the most basic of terms? That means don't have sentences that are all the same length. Don't have sentences that contain all the same amount of information in as the previous one. You think about it, our writing, you want it to flow like a roller coaster. You want it to have cadence, you want it to have tone and pace. You do not want it to go like this. Because if you do, that would be the world's most boring roller coaster. No one will be queuing up for that roller coaster for long. And similarly, we want our writing to be interesting. We don't want it to have this pace. Because no one's going to want to read it. So have a think to yourself, how can I vary it so I can have one short sentence, then I can have a long sentence with lots of bits of information. The only thing I will let you know is, what do you think they do? So short sentences, if you go, he was here, there was something there, I couldn't believe it. They create quite a fast pace. Whereas if you've got long sentences, because they physically take longer to read, to go through all the information, they slow it down. If you know that short sentences speed it up and long sentences slow it down, what I want you to do, I want you to vary it. So every paragraph should not have the same length of sentences. Like I say, we'll go into sentence types later in the day, but for now, all you need to know is I shouldn't be having the same length of sentences with the same amount of information in one after another, after another, after another. Variety is the spice of life, and it's also the spice that we're going to put in our English writing. Number two is use multisyllable vocabulary. Multisyllable. Multisyllable is again one of those words that sounds very complicated, but is very, very simple. Multisyllable. So you probably learnt syllables when you were in primary school. You probably went, hello, my. You probably clapped out the syllables at primary school. So syllables are the different beats, they're the different rhythms or sounds within a word. So you have, for example, teacher, 2 syllables. Man, 1 syllable. Woman, 2 syllables. So you can see, if you think about it, that's the syllable bit taken care of. So multi. And all you need to do is look around your kitchen to understand what that word is. A multi-pack of drink cans, a multi-pack of crisps. Multi meaning many, an assortment of. So multi-syllable are words that have more than 1 syllable in. So simply longer words. Put some more long words into your writing. Rather than the word good all the time or fine, use things like exquisite, radiant, brilliant. You know, all these words, again, just like our sentences, they vary the speed, they vary the tone. Like honey to our ears. They like pour honey in and we go, ah, we love this honey. We love this honey. Give me more. And as a result, our writing gets better. So we've got various sentences being number 1. Number 2, put some multi-syllable language in there. Try and drop some words in that are different from your normal word choice. So number 3 is posh punctuation. If you are a sort of 14, 15, year 10, full stops and commas, yes, they're very, very, very important in terms of making sure it's clear and it's organized. But for everyone who uses them more or less normally, they will just hold your grade, hold your level where it's at. And we want things that are going to make it go beyond. So what we're going to drop in now is punctuation that is not the norm. Punctuation that isn't used every day. And you'll be amazed how many of these punctuation marks you know that are considered sophisticated or different. First up is your exclamation mark. Boom. Exclamation mark for anything that's dramatic that's happening in your writing. Notice I say the word dramatic. I do not say loud, because often people get mistaken that everything loud has to have an exclamation mark, or that you can only use exclamation marks when it's loud. That's not the case at all. It means for anything that's dramatic, anything that's an event or something that's significant. Quite often though, loud things are dramatic and significant, and that's when the mix-up happens. So exclamation marks, and you put those at the end of your sentence. The next one is one that you'll have used all the time as well. Question marks. Question. Question. Question marks are really, really useful because, like I said in the last video, think of the shape of them. They're like hooks, they pull us in. So use question marks. Why was it here? What was going on? How could we possibly imagine this? Next one, you'll know this. It's a colon. It's a colon. Now a colon creates a really definite stop. If you look at the actual punctuation, it's got 2 full stops, one sitting on top of the other. And if you think about it, that's what it does. It creates a really strong pause. And lots of you will know why we use them. We use them for a list. So imagine your parents or whoever says, right, I want you to go shopping. I want you to get the following, colon. Eggs, bacon, milk, magazine, keep the change, filthy animal. They are posh punctuation. Now the last one of those is your ellipsis. Dun dun dun. Bom 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 bom. Bom 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 bom. Boom bum bum. That's what ellipsis is. It's something dramatic. It's like a cliffhanger. But also, if you think about it, it's 3 full stops. 3 full stops. And that creates silence. So sometimes you want silence to make them think about what you've written before, but also to create seriousness, to make it feel important, or to create tension. It was the loneliest place I had ever known. There was no one around. And can you see, by using those silences, you're drawing people in because they're thinking, this is really significant. Because it's not natural. If you think about it, how we were talking about those sentences, it's not natural to slow it down like that. It's not the natural way we speak to one another. So ellipsis is a really good one. So we're up to number 4. Now hold up, I said it was number 4, and you'll probably realise by the time we've gone through this, there's slightly more than 4, but it's 4 terms. Okay, so I'm allowed to cheat. We've done sentences, we've looked at vocab, we've had punctuation. Now the 4th thing is either emotive language or imagery, okay, or both if you really want to put it in. And that's why I'm saying it's a bit of a mishmash. So emotive language is again and again one of these words that sounds complicated but is really quite simple. And if you've got it already, brilliant, you're top of the class, you're doing fantastic. But if you didn't get it, and I certainly didn't get it when I was your age, emotive, because no one slowed it down, what does emotive sound like? Emotive. Is there a word you can kind of sort of hear in there? Some of you will say emotions or emotional, and you're there really. It's words that create emotions. Really strong, powerful words, often adjectives, which are describing words. Again, don't worry if you don't know what an adjective is, it's a describing word. They're words that create emotions. So for example, think of a food, think of something you don't like. I hate broccoli. I can't stand broccoli. Your parents or whoever's making you your food would go, whoa, they're far more serious about this. So put emotions in there. Emotive language. Easiest way to think of emotions in terms of writing to describe is think of alternatives for the words good, bad, big, and small. There's lots of different words you can think of for those 4 categories that'll cover a lot of bases with writing to describe. It was a brilliant sunset rather than it was a good sunset. It was awful, terrible, miserable weather rather than it was bad weather. It was the tallest structure I could ever see. It was a colossal, huge structure I saw before me instead of big. It was a minuscule, microscopic thing that was there in front of me. Small. So you can see, by adding more emotive words, you're suddenly making it more interesting. And again, just like our senses from the previous lesson, because we all have emotions, it draws the reader in. Now the next one is imagery, and that deserves a lesson all on its own. But for now, we're going to say it put a picture in the reader's head by comparing it to other things. Try and paint that picture. Now some of you may be aware of similes, metaphors and personification, and those are the things that imagery can be broken down into: metaphor, simile and personification. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a separate video all on similes, metaphors and personification. So if you don't know what that is, you can check that out in there. I would use either imagery or emotive language as our number 4 ingredient. So you've got 4 things now that you can put into every paragraph. You can put those 4 things with our sensory description, you can include them in there, and you can also use prepositions. If you can see on the screen now, I've got an image, a beautiful sunset of a forest and a wood. I want you to have a look at that image, and I want you to pick out 4 things. Pick out 4 things. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are going to be our sections that we're going to write about. And notice I say sections because you might want to write more than 1 paragraph per section. It's entirely up to you, but minimum is going to be a paragraph on each of those 4. But what I want you to do now with those 4 things that you've highlighted, I want you to put them in an order that you think would work well when writing to describe. Okay? So you've got those 4 things. I want you now to put them in an order or a sequence that you think would naturally work. It should really give you an idea of what you're writing about. First, second, third, and fourth. What I want you to do now, just put a dash next to each one of those. And I want you to put now emotive words that can help describe each one of those. If you've got the trees, you might want something like spindly or fragile or powerful, whatever. Whatever the tree is that you want to describe, put 3 emotive words next to each one of those and write them down. So you can see now, not only do you know what you'll write about, you know the order you'll write about it in, and you've also got some words that can help us. So if you're doing the GCSE, this is a really easy way to do a quick 4-5 minute plan and get your ideas all onto that page. But if you're younger, this is a great habit to get into, because before you start, you're actually thinking what order would make it work for the reader. And as a writer, we always want to be thinking about what effect will it have on the reader? What will my writing do to them? Now what I want you to do, in between each one, I want you to put the prepositions that it could be. So are those trees in front? Are they at the side? Is the path winding through? Is it beyond? Is there something before? I want you to put the prepositions in between each one. And as you'll see now, you've got a whole plan of what you can write about. What we're going to do, we're going to write. I'm going to choose the trees as my first one. So if you want to do it along with me, and we're going to have this starting sentence. The trees stretched up to the sky. Their arms were almost piercing the clouds themselves. Don't worry, it's there in the description for you as well. So that's going to be our starting sentence. I'm going to give you 10-15 minutes to write about that. Okay, remember to include those 4 things per paragraph, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what I've written down as well. The image will be left on. I'll put some sound effects on to help you write, but if you don't need the image, just click pause now and just write for 10-15 minutes. I hope that really helped you in terms of your writing. What we're going to do, we're going to have a look at my piece of writing. The trees stretched up to the sky. Their arms were almost piercing the clouds themselves. They were lined against the path like a colossal barricade. Their narrow trunks stretched up and up, almost blocking out the sun. Bars of light jutted between the branches, painting strange shadows on the ground. Silence weaved gently through the trees. Birds occasionally sang. Their gentle song latched to the forest wall. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at the piece of writing that I've just got together based on what we've been learning and see whether we've got the fantastic 4 features in it. So let's first have a look at the variety of sentences. So, first sentence, the timber stretched up to the sky. The arms were almost piercing the clouds themselves. You have a look at the other one. Bars of light jutted between the branches, painting strange shadows on the ground. And then let's have a look at the final one that I've picked out. Silence weaved gently through the trees. And as you can see here, just by looking at the lengths of them visually, it's a different length of sentence. So we've actually used some complex sentences and some simple sentences there as well, again to give us that variety of pace and tone. Next up, let's have a look at our multi-syllable language. Again, this creates so much pace and so much variety in tone, it just makes it interesting for our ears. So let's have a look at the words we've chosen. As you can see, we've got some, and you'll be amazed how many of these actual words you know and are quite commonly used, but because they've got a variety of syllables, they're actually interesting. And what they do is a bit like listening to a song. They add different beats, they have different rhythms to them, and because of that, it creates interest. So let's have a look. Piercing, colossal meaning huge or big. Barricade, meaning something preventing you from going any further. And as you can see, the last one, occasionally, a very common word. But as you can see, if you count it, occasionally, 5 syllables. So again, it creates this variety. But what you'll notice also by reading the actual paragraph is that I haven't only used multisyllable words, and that's the key. We don't want to just use multisyllable words because then they don't stand out, they don't make a difference. So you can see I've got words like path, like, trunks, stretched, all 1-syllable words. And so what you're wanting to do is always create a variety. Next one. Let's see about posh punctuation. As you can see here, the timber stretched up to the sky. Their arms were almost piercing the clouds themselves. Full stop. Now that really could do with an exclamation mark, so just like I said earlier in the video, there's nothing to do with sound in that one, but it's quite dramatic. So I tell you what, let's edit that out and put an exclamation mark. Let's change that over. And this is again why rereading your work and redrafting your work is really important. And as you can see later in the piece, when I want to actually create some silence, I've used that ellipsis. Silence weaved gently through the trees. Birds occasionally sang. Their gentle song latched to the forest wall. So the last one is emotive language. Let's have a look at whether we've used emotive language and imagery in this paragraph. And if we have, fantastic, we've got the Fantastic Four in there, and I'm sure you have too. The timber stretched up to the sky. The arms were almost piercing the clouds themselves. So we've got stretch, you can feel it pulling. And then piercing is almost like the opposite. Piercing, cutting or puncturing through something. They were lined against the path like a colossal barricade. So colossal is emotive. It's getting you that idea that it's huge. These trees are huge. Their narrow trunks stretched up, almost blocking out the sun. Bars of light jutted. Now jutted's a really good one, because jutted is quite emotive. You can imagine it, someone hustling and bustling and pushing the way through, and that's the idea I wanted to create about those branches, that they're pushing through each other to sort of get to the light. And the bars of light jutted between the branches, painting strange shadows on the ground. Now strange shadows is emotive. Even though strange and shadows, they're not words that are going to blow anyone's socks off in terms of being different or interesting, but the combination of them and the fact that I'm not telling you what the shadows are and I'm still using that word strange, the combination of that creates a bit of intrigue, a bit of mystery about the thing that I'm describing. The last one in the final sentence, the gentle song latched to the forest wall. Latched meaning to hang on to something. And that's how I imagine the birds hanging onto the branches, just perched there with their claws. And as you can see from that paragraph, the majority of lines there have got emotive language on them. Because what I'm wanting to do, I'm never wanting to give that reader a chance to move away or drift off from the thing I'm writing. I'm wanting to use this emotive language to keep them anchored to the thing I'm writing about, which is of course this woods. Finally, you can see how we've used prepositions to help the reader start to piece it together in their mind. If you have a look, they were lined against the path like a colossal barricade. Against. And then further down we've got bars of light jutted between the branches. Between is the preposition there. And you can see each time I'm giving clues to the reader as to where these events are happening in the scene, allowing them to piece it all together. So hopefully, from having a look at mine, you'll be able to see how we put all those Fantastic Four features together. As you can see, more or less every line in the paragraph has one feature or another. And the idea is that we're bombarding the reader with feature after feature, so they never ever want to drift off. They never ever have that moment's rest where they think they can go to something else, because we want to keep them hooked. And I'm sure your writing did too.
So that was lesson 2, and lesson 2 we looked at prepositions, and we also looked at four ingredients that we can put into our writing to make it better, make it stand out, and make it, crucially, far more interesting for the reader. So hopefully you're understanding now, lesson by lesson, that these lessons build on each lesson. Until next time, remember, if you've got a textbook teacher, if you've got an English problem, then maybe, just maybe, you can call Kickass English. And until next week, I will see you again, my friends. Bye-bye.